we were still slaves in the mind.
Message!
Aborigines, which means what? Black folks. You never find a white aborigine. Aborigines are called natives, or they're always dark-skinned people. You and I are aborigines, but you don't like to be called an aborigine.
It comes as a great shock to discover that the country, which is your birthplace, and to which you owe your life and your identity, has not in its whole system of reality evolved any place for you. It comes as a great shock around the age of 5 or 6 or 7 to discover that the flag to which you have pledged allegiance, along with everybody else, has not pledged allegiance to you. It comes as a great shock to discover that Gary Cooper killing off the Indians when you were rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians were you. When I was growing up, I was taught in American history books that Africa had no history, and neither did I. That I was a savage, about whom the less said the better, who had been saved by Europe and brought to America. And of course, I believed it. I didn't have much choice. Those are the only books there were. I am stating very seriously, and this is not an overstatement, that I picked the cotton, and I carried it to market, and I built the railroads under someone else's whip for nothing. For nothing. If one has got to prove one's title to the land, isn't 400 years enough? 400 years, at least 3 wars. The American soil is full of the corpses of my ancestors. Why is my freedom or my citizenship or my right to live there, how is it conceivably a question now? What we are not facing is the results of what we've done. What one begs the American people to do for all our sakes is simply to accept our history until the moment comes when we, the Americans, we, the American people, we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other. Until this moment, there is scarcely any hope for the American dream, because the people who are denied participation in it, by their very presence, will wreck it.
Because however much America strays away from the ideals of justice, the goal of America is freedom. Abused and scorned though we may be, our destiny is tied up in the destiny of America. Before the Pilgrim Fathers landed at Plymouth, we were here. Before Jefferson etched across the pages of history the majestic words of the Declaration of Independence, we were here. Before the beautiful words of the Star-Spangled Banner were written, we were here. And for more than 2 centuries, our forebears labored here without wages. They made cotton king. They built the homes of their masters in the midst of the most humiliating and oppressive conditions, and yet out of a bottomless vitality, they continue to grow and develop.
Back now with my panel. Hi, panel. Welcome back.
Someone on Twitter said, Don, get control of your panel. That is easier said than done, especially when you're dealing with this group. Just so you know, the only thing I can do is sometimes say, we got to go, or cut the mic, and then people are like, you won't let him talk. Well, that's the only control I have, because they yell over me. Okay, so I'm going to continue to talk about April Ryan. I don't mind it. Come on, you know, I'm thick-skinned. So April Ryan, we're going to continue, but I want to expand this and talk about Bill O'Reilly on Fox coming under fire for this comment on Fox and Friends, where he mocked Representative Maxine Waters, her hair, while she was delivering a speech on the floor of the House of Representatives. Here it is.
We're saying to those who say they're patriotic, but they turned a blind eye to the destruction that he's about to cause this country. You're not nearly as patriotic as we are.
So what does that mean, Bill? We've been listening all morning. We cannot. I didn't hear a word she said. I was looking at the James Brown wig. If we have a picture of James, it's the same. It's the same one,
no,
right? And he's not using it anymore.
You're all wrong about this.
I have to defend her on that. You can't go after a woman's looks. I think she's very attractive.
But I didn't say she wasn't attractive. I love James Brown.
So he did apologize.
No,
An extremely intelligent, accomplished, respected woman, why reduce her to that, Paris, and talk about her hair? Because Simone brought up the disrespecting of a woman of color. Here's another woman of color. Why do that?
I think, Don, we should first start. We always go to the race card, and I don't think that's relevant. I don't think this is a racial thing at all. There are plenty of racists in this world. And we should be sure that when we call somebody a racist, or we say that they actually are. So I just think that we need to stop that. Now let me
Paris,
finish.
let me say this. I got to say this. I will let you finish. But even all the white guys in the studio are side-eyeing you right now. They're all like,
to be side-eyed.
Well,
He needs to be side-eyed.
But go ahead, Paris. Let him finish. Let him finish.
Let me finish. I think what it is Bill O'Reilly said what he said was in jest, and he said it was dumb. He apologized for it, and if you played the rest of the clip, he did go on to say that he likes Maxine, Congresswoman.
Said she was old school. She believes what she says.
And it's old school because the title of his book was old school, so the whole segment was about that. But he also said she's a woman who isn't a phony. She believes what she says, and she is someone who is genuine.
Yeah. He did say that. He's right.
He said it was dumb, and he apologized for it.
Go ahead, Angela.
Okay, so let me help you. In case you thought that this was Bill O'Reilly's first racist moments, he has a record of saying racist comments. Let me bring you back to July. Slaves that worked there were well fed and had decent lodgings provided by the government, which stopped hiring slave labor in 1802. That is in response to Michelle Obama saying that her kids are playing on the White House lawn, which was built at the hands of slaves. This man has a pattern and practice of calling black men thugs, of making fun of Congresswoman Waters' hair. He's intimidated by her.
We were thugs.
Don't do it. Don't do it, Paris. Don't do it today. Don't do it today.
Did President Obama call us thugs?
Bill O'Reilly
President Obama did call people thugs.
All right, we're talking about Bill O'Reilly. Go on.
You guys say going down a rabbit hole that is irrelevant. Your boy is a racist. He needs to be fired. His apology isn't sufficient. Race baiting is when you continue to utilize. Why can't you ever just hush? Race baiting.
Let him get in. Let him
If he
get
said
in.
that to you, he'd be a racist.
Okay, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. I have
No,
not listened to my knowledge. And I could be wrong. I've never heard Bill O'Reilly talk about anybody else's hair, because I'm sure there are a lot of people there, and maybe the lady, I don't know if she does. She may have some hair extensions out there on Fox and Friends. And there's sure a lot of women who are on that very network have some wigs or some. That's what ladies do. So I'm just saying, but that's what, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
There's nothing
Why
wrong
bring
with
that up?
it.
I've never seen him bring that up about a white woman. That's all I'm saying.
Here's what I'll say. If you're going to say that Maxine Waters, these comments that Bill O'Reilly made, and they were dumb comments, and I'm glad he apologized for them. They were stupid. Obviously, they were off the cuff, and obviously he realized he made a mistake. But if you're going to throw out the race card every single time and say he should be fired and everything else, then should Maxine Waters resign for demanding that we impeach Donald Trump before he'd ever done anything when he was elected president? Isn't she a racist for saying that the white guy that was elected president, who had done nothing wrong but get elected, should be impeached? If you want to be taken seriously, as Maxine Waters, as you're saying, is so credible, she's not very credible when you're calling for the impeachment, because because you didn't get your way of the President of the United States of America when you're a congresswoman.
Listen, that's fine. That's another conversation, though, about her credibility.
No, but it's part of this conversation, Don.
Why are we questioning Maxine Waters' credibility, who is a former
She called for the President to be impeached when he had done nothing.
That's a whole other issue. Donald Trump has done some questionable things, Ben, but why did you automatically go to question the credibility of...
It's a double standard, is my point. If you're going to hold Bill O'Reilly, let me explain this. If you're going to hold Bill O'Reilly here, you got to at least hold Maxine Waters at the same level.
Ben, stop talking.
That's a double standard.
Stop talking. You don't want to be labeled a racist.
What I'm saying to you is, I'd like to know, before I said anything, I didn't say anything about Bill O'Reilly being racist today. Actually, my point that I was going to make is, and he has definitely done some very racist things. But what I was going to say is that he automatically went to what the Maxine Waters, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, a woman, what she looked like. And how many women in their jobs, in their personal lives, in their professional lives can identify with being talked about for what they look like and not the credibility and the things that they're saying.
And this is my point.
And my point to you is that it is not only just dumb, it is sexist, it is incorrect,
I said it was
unacceptable, and it should not be tolerated.
But you can't, if you're, this is the double standard that I'm talking about. If you're going to hold people to this high moral ground, then how do you not hold Maxine Waters to the same standard that you're saying Bill O'Reilly should lose his job over when she called for the President to be impeached?
Because she was the victim today. And moreover, there was another Fox analyst.
Ben, all right, listen, stop. Here's the thing. The President has called for people to be locked up. He's called for people to step down. He's called for people to be fired. But okay, so that's a different thing. Maxine Waters called for the President to be impeached, whatever. That's politics. But to say if she got up there and said Donald Trump's wig looked like Howdy Doody, that would be a different thing because she's talking about his looks. We're not talking. Ben, would you let me finish? Let me finish. Bill O'Reilly, I don't know if he's racist or not. I have no idea. I don't know what the comment. I'll let you guys decide that. But he was talking about her personal appearance. Even he has said it was dumb. Right. And to say that you cannot say that it didn't come off as sexist because he didn't. I don't know if he's ever said that about a man.
Don,
I don't know if anybody would say that about a man.
Don, let's be honest. Have you ever done a segment about all of the people that have made fun of Donald Trump's hair? Did anybody ask for them to be fired?
Donald Trump has made fun of his own hair.
Of the President of the United States of America.
Donald Trump has made fun of his own hair.
My point is, it's a double standard.
It's not a double standard. He goes on television. He goes on television and he makes fun of his own hair. He lets Jimmy Fallon rustle through his hair. He talks about how real his hair is. His doctor showed that he has alopecia for his hair. So, I mean, he talks about his own hair. Why is that a double standard? He's making fun. If Maxine Waters had said, I had talked about her own wig, then that would be a different story. But she does not do that. He brought something into the conversation that should not be brought there.
Hi guys. Black America is potentially the most dangerous group of humans alive today. Dangerous to who? Dangerous to the corporate empire, Illuminati, imperial scum, whatever you want to call them, white supremacists. Why are they dangerous? Well, there's 45 million black Americans. And the reason they're dangerous is because they're quite easily united. It might seem not true because there's so much division within black people in America. But the only reason they're divided is because the corporate empire spends billions of dollars keeping them divided because they are potentially dangerous. What makes them dangerous? Well, 45 million people united in the US would be very dangerous. What kind of things is dangerous? Well, you might think I'm talking about protesting or getting together and rallying and that kind of stuff. Well, no, that's not dangerous because the US can handle that stuff. They're set up for it. They can imprison an indefinite amount of people. That's not the kind of danger I'm talking about. 45 million people united could do some serious damage to the financial market. I mean, if you had 45 million united people that got together and decided they're going to create an alliance and they're going to decide on a daily basis how they spend their money, that would be dangerous. The thing that threatens the corporate empire, Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, the thing that really threatens them is a group that can control their bank accounts. So really, for me, it's really simple. Black America needs to unite for one reason: to control how black money is spent. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. If Black America united 100% and created websites, Facebook, whatever, a way where there's a body or a board or whatever, and you guys decide how you're going to spend your money on a daily basis, it's a game changer. It means that you control the scum that is oppressing you. They will not be able to handle that. It's a big thing. I know it's a really hard thing to organize, but you can do it because Black America is a united people, really. They're a natural race that identifies with each other and supports each other, really. I mean, the divisions are just corporate empire scum investing money into keeping you guys divided. So I'd forget about it. Don't even think that you can't do it, because you can. And it's that simple. Control how black money is spent and you win the game.
Hello, we're going to do a short little video here, and we're going to show you a original 1611 King James Bible, and also have some pages from some other ancient scriptures, just to show you that you will not find the letter J in these translations, because the letter J is a new addition to the English language. I mean, it's the last letter that's been added. It came into the to predominant usage in the English language around the 17th century. And so in the original King James 1611 Bible, there is no J letter. And so with that said, you'll notice that the Messiah or Mashiach is not referred to, or not, his name is not Jesus in the original 1611 Bible. Now I'm going to move the camera over here. This is the opening page of the King James 1611 Bible. Let me zoom in here and just scroll up and down. See the 1611 year down near the bottom there, and all this artwork that they use. Some of it doesn't really look very spiritual at all. But I do want to show you something that's interesting. At the very top, I'm going to zoom in at the top up here. Do you see the creator's name in modern Hebrew script at the very top there? Right there, Yod He Uahe, Yahuwah is the creator's name. Is in fact, the letters are at the very top of this particular opening page, which is very, very interesting. Now I'm going to turn the page over. This is the next page in there. It says, I'll read it to you. It says, it's the introductory page, to the most high and mighty Prince. Now, this is being a King James, you would think it would say King James. Well, it says Prince Imes. That's because the J letter wasn't in usage in England at that time. Well, it had begun to be introduced somewhat, but it was not in the original King James Bible because it was not predominantly used. Excuse me. So what we would say King James was known as King James back then. I'm going to scroll over here. You're going to see the Messiah's name. There it is, where it says the Bible underneath there. You're going to see the name that you would think would be Jesus, but it's actually the Latin form, which is Jesus, from the Greek Iesus, which we know that neither of those names are the Messiah's name. His name originated in Hebrew, which is Yahusha. Excuse me, but you don't see his name there. It's Jesus. Again, no J letter in all of this Bible here. I'm going to show you a page from the from the book of Romans. This is actually the introductory page. It says the epistle of, now notice how Paul is spelled here. It's P-A-V-L. And that's because the V and the U carried the U sound, and the V actually was a new sound that came into our language, but it actually carried the U sound, as it would have been P-A, pronounced as Paul, but it's written here with a V. Notice how Romans is written there. I want to scroll down to the first chapter and show you verse 3 here. It says, concerning his son, look how son is spelled, S-O-N-N-E, and then you see the Messiah's name spelled, and that's an I there. It's a capital I, the way it was written, I-E, and that looks like an F, but actually that's the long S, as in they used to write it that way. On the end of a word, it'd be in the small s, as you see. So it's spelled I-E-S-U-S. And it did not take on the letter J until in the King James Bible, until around the 4th edition of the King James Bible, which is around 1628, I believe, if memory serves me correctly, from my research that I've done. So actually, the name Jesus did not show up in the scriptures as we know it today until around that time. So he never was called Jesus back when he walked on the earth, because there is no J letter. There was no J letter around to pronounce it that way. Hebrew, he was a Hebrew. He was given a Hebrew name. And of course, there is no J letter in Hebrew back then, nor is it today. Neither is there a J letter in the Greek language. And so it's fairly new to the English language. I want to show you a couple more pages here. First of all, this is the book of Joshua. Show you that there's no J. You see here the book of, look how Joshua is spelled. There is no J because there is no J letter. So he never, of course, Joshua was just as our English translation, but his name was the same, carried the same name as our Messiah, our Mashiach, which is Yahusha. But that's how it's written right there in the King James original 1611 Bible. Here's a page out of this is the Reims. This is dated 1582. This is before the King James Bible. This is the New Testament. It's actually the first English Roman Catholic edition. And I'll scroll down here and find it for you if I can. There it is. I-E-S-V-S. Notice how it's spelled. No J letter back then either. Of course, this is before 1611. So naturally, it's not in this New Testament either. So, with that said, just wanted to point that out to you. Let me see if I can turn this Bible around up on this top here and show you again. It's a King James 1611 Bible.
But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee, and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy land. the increase of thy kine, and the flocks of thy sheep. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out. The Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke in all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. The Lord shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, until he hath consumed thee from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. The Lord shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with a sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron. The Lord shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. From heaven shall it come down upon thee until thou be destroyed. The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. And thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. The Lord will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emerods, and with the scab, and with the itch, whereof thou canst not be healed. The Lord shall smite thee with madness, and blindness, and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. There shall be no might in thine hand. The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed away, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. The Lord shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs with a sore botch that cannot be healed, from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head. The Lord shall bring thee and thy king which thou shalt set over thee unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations whither the Lord shall lead thee. Thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shalt gather but little in, for the locust shall consume it. Thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worms shall eat them. Thou shalt have olive trees throughout all thy coasts, but thou shalt not anoint thyself with the oil, for thine olive shall cast his fruit. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. All thy trees and fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Because thou servedst not the Lord thy God with joyfulness, and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor shew favor to the young. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle, and the fruit of thy land, until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kine, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down. wherein thou trustest throughout all thy land, and he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy God hath given thee. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which the Lord thy God hath given thee in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. So that the man that is tender among you, and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children which he shall leave, so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children, whom he shall eat. Because he hath nothing left him in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates. The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear. For she shall eat them for want of all things secretly in the siege, and straitness wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates. If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name, the Lord thy God. Then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed even great plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sickness, and of long continuance. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Also every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord bring upon thee, until thou be destroyed. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord thy God. And it shall come to pass, that as the Lord rejoiced over you to do you good, and to multiply you, so the Lord will rejoice over you to destroy you, and to bring you to naught. And ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, Would God it were even, and at even thou shalt say, Would God it were morning, for the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
And you walk up to the pearly gates and you are confronted by God. What will Stephen Fry say to him, her, or it?
I will basically, what's known as theodicy, I think. I'll say, bone cancer in children? What's that about? How dare you? How dare you create a world in which there is such misery that is not our fault? It's not right. It's utterly, utterly evil. Why should I respect a capricious, mean-minded, stupid God who creates a world which is so full of injustice and pain? That's what I would say.
And you think you're going to get in on
No,
that?
but I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to get in on his terms. They're wrong. Now, if I died and it was Pluto, Hades, and if it was the 12 Greek gods, then I would have more truck with it, because the Greeks they didn't pretend not to be human in their appetites and in their capriciousness and in their unreasonableness. They didn't present themselves as being all-seeing, all-wise, all-kind, all-beneficent. Because the God who created this universe, if it was created by God, is quite clearly a maniac. Utter maniac. Totally selfish. We have to spend our life on our knees thanking him? What kind of God would do that? Yes, the world is very splendid, but it also has in it insects whose whole life cycle is to burrow into the eyes of children and make them blind. They eat outwards from the eyes. Why? Why did you do that to us? You could easily have made a creation in which that didn't exist. It is simply not acceptable.
Hello YouTube, and welcome to Atheist Minority. This video will be quite a bit different from my usual videos. Typically I give you mostly facts, peppered with a little bit of personal opinion. But today I'm speaking to you from the heart. My fellow African Americans, Christianity is the religion of our former slave masters. During slavery, religion was designed to further oppress us, give us false hope, and to keep us submissive. When we came to this nation, we were stripped of our language, our names, our country, and our gods. Our ancestors didn't worship Jesus Christ. Anything that held meaning to us was taken, because without roots, you're just floating around, able to be carried along by the wind. We had already been displaced. The next step was to make sure that any bonds we held were thoroughly broken. Slaves in this country were beaten, raped, demeaned, mistreated, forced to live an entire life doing things that defiled them, broke their bodies and their spirits. Their children were sold right from under them, entire families ripped apart. But they could be comforted by the words of Jesus, and suddenly the injustice is easier to bear. Most slaves were not allowed to learn how to read or write, yet the one book that could be shared with the slave population was the Holy Bible. Why do you think that is? Surely it wasn't to save our souls, because you must be human to possess a soul, and our slave masters made it clear that they considered us to be less than human. So why do you think they gave us their religion? Let's look to the Bible for answers. Now, I know modern day Christians like to throw out the uncomfortable parts of the Old Testament. So we won't even go through the first half of the Bible and all of the many verses in the Old Testament that condone and support slavery and teach slave masters how to be proper owners of their slaves. We'll look at the New Testament only, starting with Ephesians chapter 6, verse 5. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with fear and trembling, with a sincere heart as you would Christ. Or how about Luke chapter 12, verses 47 and 48? And that servant who knew his master's will but did not get ready or act according to his will receive a severe beating. But the one who did not know and did what deserved a beating will receive a light beating. And my personal favorite, 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 1 and 2. Let all who are under a yoke as slaves regard their own masters as worthy of all honor, so that the name of God and the teaching may not be reviled. Those who have believing masters must not be disrespectful on the ground that they are brothers. Rather, they must serve all the better, since those who benefit by their good service are believers and beloved. This is your Bible. These are the words of your God. Do you agree with it? You have to, or else you must admit that this book is simply wrong. The pursuit of knowledge was prohibited for our ancestors. The price for trying to learn something new was severe punishment, beatings, and maimings. But today, we have the freedom and the opportunity to learn as much as we want about any topic under the sun. And with the internet and other resources available to us, there is no excuse. Blind faith is willful ignorance, and perhaps one of the greatest ways we disgrace our heritage. We've done more than just adopt the religion of our previous oppressors. We've embraced it to the point that we are now the most religious group of people in the entire nation. 83% of African Americans are Christians. 88% of us are absolutely convinced that God exists. Although a small percentage of us are unaffiliated, we still largely believe in a higher being. The numbers for non-believers are low anyway across the nation, but for us, the amount of African Americans claiming to be agnostic is about 1%. And those of us who claim to be atheists is less than 0.5%. Just take a step back for a moment. removing your feelings and your emotions from the equation, and think about how ridiculous this is. It's like we're suffering from some twisted form of Stockholm syndrome or something, embracing the very thing that was designed to perpetrate our subjugation. If this were anything other than religion we were talking about, you would be able to clearly see the disconnect. Now, I know there are some Christians who will say it's actually a good thing slavery happened because that's what saved us. This absolutely breaks my heart. How can you be so callous towards your ancestors? Slavery was abolished 150 years ago. 150 years. That is not a long time. Many of you watching this video have great-great-grandparents who were slaves. These are not distant ancestors we're talking about here. In fact, had you been born 200 years ago, it would have been you. And yet, you're okay with what our ancestors endured simply because the rest of us can now be saved? If you honestly believe this was God's plan for bringing salvation to our people, how can you also believe that this same cruel God who allowed slavery to happen for centuries is one who deserves to be praised? There's simply no way that removing all rights from an entire race of people are the actions of a loving, benevolent being. Let's just say, for the sake of this argument, that the God of the Bible is real. If so, he turned his back on us for an unspeakable amount of time, and arguably, he's still looking the other way, and yet we continue to praise his name louder than anyone else in the entire nation. If God really wanted to save our souls, he did not have to inflict 245 years of pain and suffering on our people to get the job done. I will not worship a God who devises this method of saving souls. Religion is the primary thing holding us back as a people. It makes us complacent with the status quo. It stills our ambition. Since Christians aren't supposed to covet wealth, it encourages us to be satisfied with a more meager existence, and then give what little bit we do have to the church. Which brings me to another point, the fact that we are sinking our wealth into the black churches. Religion also kills our thirst for knowledge, and it keeps us stagnant because so many times we don't actually do anything because our preferred mode of action is prayer, which is entirely futile. Prayer hasn't changed our circumstances, and yet so many of us still offer this up as a bona fide solution. If you're a Christian watching this video and you've made it this far, you probably feel sad for me. You might be thinking that I've lost my way, or that I'm gambling with my eternal soul. You might even be thinking that the devil has a hold on me and that I'm being led away from God by Satan's lies. But I'm not the one being lied to. You are the one with scales over your eyes. And I know this because I used to be where you are now. My scales have fallen away. I just want you to take a look at what you believe and why you believe it. If you're a Christian who was converted after the age of reason, and you know all of the details about your religion, then fine. But if you're like most of us, Christianity just is. It's a fact of life, and everyone around you believes the same thing, and you probably never even gave it much thought. You may have even been baptized at such a young age that you didn't even really know what you were doing anyway. I get it. When everyone you know and love believes that Jesus Christ is their Savior, it can be the hardest thing in the world to break away. You might not even think it's worth it to start asking these difficult questions, because if you begin to turn away from Christianity, you almost certainly will be ostracized and estranged. But you know what they say, the things in this life worth having are never easy to come by. And making the choice to turn away from your religion may very well be one of the hardest things you would ever do. However, there is simply no price that can be put on the reward that comes from opening your eyes and seeing the truth. In this country, physical slavery has been abolished. But if your mind is still enslaved, are you truly free? Thanks for watching. Peace.
You got me in chains for your love, but I wouldn't change. No, I wouldn't change this love. Trying to break the chains, but the chains only bring me.
Yo, what up, Nyakos? It's your buddy Philco here, reporting live for your mama's house. And look what I just found on Facebook. And it says this: for black people to believe in the same God that allowed them to be enslaved shows their level of intelligence. We are living in the age of information. Why are they still believers? It makes no sense. We gave blacks Christianity because it made them better slaves. Even my great-grandpa told my dad once that blacks accepting Christianity was the best thing that ever happened to white slavers. The fear of hell and promise of them everlasting life is what finally kept the slaves from rebelling and running away. Laugh out loud. And nowadays, black people are still praising the very imaginary white guy who allowed them to be enslaved in the first place, shouting and dancing with their wigs falling off in church. Laugh out loud. Falling off. I think even passing out. I'm not racist, but we all must admit that black Christian women are some funny motherfuckers. The only whites who believe in Christianity are the descendants of poor whites from those days. The rich whites didn't believe in that crap because they knew what it was being used for: control over the slaves and poor whites. Interesting. You know how I say a lot of people post stupid shit on Facebook, but I don't see this one as that stupid. I really don't. I don't see it as stupid. I like it. I love it. I love it. Now, let's go line for line and see what I agree with. For black people to believe in the same God that allowed them to be enslaved showed their level of intelligence. I agree with that. I agree with that first line. It was the same God, same religion that allowed you to be enslaved. And if you don't think the Bible endorses slavery, it does endorse slavery. It tells you how to treat your fucking slave. If he's a Jewish slave, what, he got 7 years and some shit? It tells you how often you could beat your slave? Yeah, it actually says slavery is okay. But stupid black people, just like this girl, I don't think it was really this girl who posted it or something. It could be a made-up Facebook or some shit, I don't know. But either way, it's very interesting. Yeah, and a lot of black people just not smart enough to see that, I disagree with it. I don't even want to go. I agree with that. Now, next one. We are living in the age of information. Yes. Why are they still believers? I have no fucking idea. It makes no sense. I completely agree. We gave blacks Christianity because it made them better slaves. I believe in part of that. I don't think that's the only reason they gave Christianity, but it's another reason to it is part of it was to make them better slaves, but I think also just cultural domination. Like when you usually dominate a culture or dominate a people, you want to dominate everything. You want to dominate their language. You want them to speak your language. You want to dominate their culture. You want them to understand your culture. You basically try to erase whatever history they have. So giving them Christianity was part of the way to erase the history they had. So I like that. I accept that. Okay, I made them better slaves. Even my great-grandpa told my dad once that blacks accepting Christianity was the best thing that ever happened to white slavers. Close to true, I guess. I don't know. I'm not too strong on that one. The fear of hell and promise of everlasting life is what finally kept the slaves from rebelling and running away. Could be, maybe. Laugh out loud, and nowadays black people are still praising the very imaginary white guy who allowed them to be enslaved in the first place. Love it. Love that one. Love it, love it, love it. Shouting and dancing with their wigs falling off in church. Laugh out loud. Agree, agree. I'm not racist, but we all must admit that black Christian women are some funny motherfuckers. Absolutely. The only whites who believe in Christianity are the descendants of poor whites from those days. I don't know anything about I have no opinion on that one. The rich whites didn't believe in that crap because they knew what it was being used for. No idea. Control over the slaves and poor whites. No idea about that. But anyway. But for the majority of it, or for most of it, I agree with a lot of what Tamara said. Let's just say Tamara actually said it. I agree with most of it, and I like it. It's very true. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't take things, maybe certain things from slavery that we learned and use it today. I mean, religion is a cultural thing. It's something you necessarily don't need. It's just like another way to live your life. It's not like a science or something like. So let's say during slavery, we learned about condoms. And we started using condoms. Oh, they made you use condoms during slavery because they didn't want you to have babies. Yeah, okay, but it also has some really good advantages. Scientifically speaking, we don't want to have babies. We could use these condoms. If when we're ready to have babies, we won't use the condoms. That's just an example. But when it comes to something like this, something that's just culture, you don't need it. You don't need it. Unless you don't have enough intelligence and or self-control. So a lot of people feel they'll be much wilder and crazier without God. Well, then that's your fucking problem and you have an issue. Because I don't believe in God at all. Especially a God who wants you to do shit. I don't believe in that at all. 0%.
I know we don't want a sermon here, but I believe he's going to hold us accountable for the things that we've done and are doing. If any of my kinfolk ever see this, then I'll lose more than what I've lost already. And I was thrown out of that church in my early 20s, which was back in the 60s, because I taught that racism was wrong in a Sunday school class. I was asked to leave that church, and the elder of the church, the deacon of the church that came to me and talked to me about it the first time was my grandfather. And he said, you can't say these things. And I said, I can't not say these things. Christianity has been misused for hundreds of years to keep your people in subjugation. And I'm speaking now a reality that the history books do not record. Christianity was used because if I said, okay, you don't believe the way I believe, and Christianity is the best way to believe, so I'm going to take you, and it's going to be for your own good, honey. It's going to be for your own good. I'm going to take you, and I'm going to tear away everything about you, and just keep your hands and your feet, because they can help me getting off. But I'm going to do this for your own good, because I'm going to give you a God. Now, what does that God look like? The reality of it is when he came here, he didn't look like me. So what am I going to do about that? I'm going to make him look like me. So for hundreds of years, we've been telling you, and now you have to keep in mind that we took away any other God that you might have through force, through fear, through pain, through any means necessary. So now I'm going to give you a God, but I'm going to do that in a way that it's going to further me. So I'm going to give you a God that looks like me, so that when you bow down to that God, you're bound down to me. The Bible tells us what he's going to look like when he comes back. We have taken that and changed it. Do you remember when Jesus went to Egypt? He hid in Egypt. The people in Egypt, honey, they're not white people. How could he hide that? See, so that we've done that. We've given your people a God that looks like me, so that you don't have any qualm about bowing down to me. See, because this is the image of God. I don't know of any sin that we've committed that's greater than that one. And we did it with the Bible in our hands when we were beating your ancestors for looking at us eye to eye. And we're quoting to them from this scripture. Even if we allowed them to have their own ministers, which there wasn't many of because we didn't allow them to read. But if we said, okay, you can have your church, This is my plantation. I'm going to do what I want with it. You can have your church. But then spies were sent. And those spies would stand outside the church, and that man would be beaten, perhaps killed, if he preached anything other than 3 sermons. And those 3 sermons were turn the other cheek, obey your master, and it's going to get better one of these days. God's going to take care of all of it. You're going to be in a happy, happy land. So put up with what you're putting up with now. And we made your people preach that to your people. And it's still being done. It's still being done. Those are the sermons that your people hear. Those sermons are what causes your people to comfort me when I do something that's wrong. We still know where your place is. We know where our place is. And to me, the greatest deception that we've caused is that your people believe us when we say, this is my place and that is your place. Because I see evidence, and especially in seminars like this, because I will hear non-whites speak, and I hear them speak when they don't even know that they're speaking from a position that I have told them is the only way they're going to be allowed to succeed to that degree that I'm going to let them come up that ladder. Of course, I'm just going to let them come up so far. But the greatest sadness for me is that they don't even know. See, I have done such a good job that they don't even know that I've done this to them. A strong black man one time said to me, one of the greatest things you can do for my people is to stop shedding any tears. And he said to me, you must stop the tears, because my people are so conditioned to putting their arms around you and comforting you when you weep, then they are no longer strong. Their strength that is coming from standing up and saying, no, you're not going to treat me like that. That strength is gone because they've got their arms around you, comforting you. And I have tried to listen to the wisdom of that very, very wise man. I can't always, When I sat in that room the other night, when the author of Without Sanctuary, when he was speaking and those pictures were there of the lynchings, the methods that we have used to keep control, I wept, that I could. But when I wept, his words came back to me, because all around me, the non-white people would reach out and comfort me. My God, there in front of, I don't understand it. See, I don't understand the closeness that your people have with the Mother Earth, with the concept of beginnings, God himself. There is so much of that in you that you can forgive me and comfort me when I'm weeping at what I've done to you. See, that's beyond my, it's beyond my understanding. I don't understand the kindness.
Would you be surprised to know that there are Egyptian artifacts, Egyptian pyramids, even mummies that exist in the Grand Canyon that are older than the pyramids that exist in Giza, Egypt? So the structures you're seeing here are more weathered and worn down by far than temples that exist and pyramids that exist in other countries. Some of them are more noticeable as being a previous pyramid or temple, others are not. Here's a map showing the different locations of temples such as the Tower of Set, the Isis Temple, and so on. Now the reason I'm talking about this, and this is where it gets really interesting, is that I made a major discovery back maybe 2 months ago, where I found that the rock that you're looking at there, that is in the Rock of the Dome in Israel, you know, the big building with the gold dome on top of it, that building has one thing and one thing only in it, and it is a rock that looks, shaped, and even the topography, and I've done videos on this. I'll put a put a video at the end of this video, so it'll be the first one in the top left-hand corner, so you can go back and see that video. But it looks, shaped, topography and everything exactly like the western third of the United States. It just happens to match the states that you see in red that the Bureau of Land Management has control of in the United States. It's not private land anymore, it's public land. You know, public as in the public don't have the right to go on it. For some reason, they've transferred ownership of these parts of these states, and they intend on it being 100%. And they're very close. That map, the amount of red shows you how much of the state. I mean, look at Nevada. Almost every square inch of Nevada belongs to, or at least they believe it belongs to them, the Bureau of Land Management. Now, you'd be interested to find out who owns and controls the Bureau of Land Management. I would tell you. However, that's not exactly what this video is about. So here we've got the western third of the United States, shaped like the Rock of the Dome Rock. Now here's that western third of the United States. You can kind of ignore the arrows for the moment and pay attention to what I'm going to show you here. I'm saying that these temples and these findings, which I'm going to show you a lot more imagery of that. I'm going to show you mummies. I'm going to show you some of the artifacts they found, and I'm going to show you some of the caves where the temples were at. It's incredible. But let me get the theory in your head first. This settlement is older than Egypt, than the Egyptian temples that are over there, the pyramids. What was going on in the Grand Canyon was prior, and I mean prior as in thousands of years prior, a complete eon prior, a complete cycle of time prior, a different set of 7,000 years prior. Following me? So, what happened? Well, if you take a look at this map, and as I'm zooming in and such here, doesn't it look like to you just an absolute disaster happened? It looks like that the western third of the United States was a catastrophe at some point or another. Absolute catastrophe. Somewhere's between, I mean, I've said a couple times recently that it looks like it has boiled. The ground has boiled, that every rock was turned upside down, and it literally boiled. Few interesting things you can see in this image if you look at it closely. It's up in the upper left-hand corner of the image. You can see what looks like a face. Actually, that red arrow is pointing at it. You can see it's kind of, the head's kind of leaning to the right. We got two eyes, circles around the eyes, a nose, mouth, the whole bit, hair, everything. There's one in the lower right down there too as well, where those arrows are pointing at. You can see the right eye. You can see this is kind of almost a side profile. But we're not here to find faces out of topography, because you can find faces in the clouds. But what we are here to do is to say, what exactly happened, and why didn't they tell us about it? You know, because they of course told us when we came up going through school that Columbus discovered America. He was, you know, the first person or human to find America, right? Well, we also know that that isn't the case. There were Indians here. There were Indians in the United States hemisphere. And likely a disaster of that level that it looks like took place in the western United States would have affected the rest of the United States, the entire continent, really. I mean, because this event takes place as you look at it all the way down into Mexico, all the way up into Canada, all the way to Alaska. The Ring of Fire must have been on fire. There must be a reason why they name it Ring of Fire other than earthquakes. Okay. So now we've got not Columbus finding this place, maybe not Indians being here first, even though they were. Maybe they weren't Indians, maybe they were Egyptians. And maybe they had huge major temples built in the Grand Canyon, because when I look at places that I might want to live, places of beauty in the United States, and I've been to most states in the United States, and the western United States is certainly in most ways more beautiful than the eastern half of the United States, and I've been and lived in both places. Spent a lot of time in Idaho, Washington, California, Oregon, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Montana, South Dakota. Well, the list goes on, but you get the picture that I'm very familiar with that part of the country. And I'm starting to add up some things here that, as I've said before, everything that we've been told is an extreme set of lies to completely keep us fooled and keep the truth hidden from us. And the truth, in this case, is more mind-blowing than the lie is. You see, as always, the truth has been right in front of our face. We just didn't know it. We were too ignorant. The decision was made a long time ago, 5,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, and they stuck with it, that they were going to keep us ignorant. They were going to keep us dumbed down to the real facts, the real history of this world. And I don't know about you, but it pisses me the hell off that these few people think that they deserve the right to have all the information about our history, because he who controls the past or knows the past controls the present. Got quite a bit more stuff to show you here, guys, that is very interesting. Anybody ever wondered why in this eon, I'm referring to, well, eon technically is 1,000 years. There's a word for it, but I can't think of it. But let's call it the last season, the last 7,000 years. Why the black man, from every angle, it's been an attempt to destroy and eradicate them. I mean, you can say anything you want, and you can say, and this ain't me saying this, but someone could say they're just stupid. Really? Or are they just uneducated? You could say they're just barbaric. Really? Or are they just unrefined? You could say they're like animals. Really? Or are they just undomesticated? You see, I look at things differently, and one of the ways I look at things is that what is the root causes of the behaviors of people in their lives today? So therefore, is it the black man's fault? It is not the black man's fault. But we're getting off on another story that's related, but not exactly where we're going. Let's take a look at a few things. Now, this was found in one of the caves in the Grand Canyon, in near mint condition. It was in a closed off area, sealed off area that survived. I would say what you're looking at is between 7,000 to 15,000, potentially even older, but it's older than the Egyptian pyramids if the Egyptian pyramids are 7 to 15 or 7 to 14, then this would be 14 to 21,000 years old. It's pre-Egyptian empire in Egypt. So they found this. It looks kind of like a dog kind of humanoid. Yet recently, this was installed, almost an exact replica, at the Denver International Airport, the One World International Airport. Man, that should just make your brain spin. I mean, we are getting so close to really starting to understand some things about our history. Because if we can understand what happened, we can understand what's going to happen. One thing that is happening is that I believe that we are at the end of another one of the 7,000-year cycles. That we are literally but days, months, likely not years. And if it is years, it's just the end of the 7-year tribulation. Tribulation, that is. And I'm not sure. I'm not positive about any of this. But this is what I do, and I choose to share it with you. And apparently a lot of you like to follow me along this journey of trying to figure out my world, my history. Here's another photo found in the cave in outstanding condition. This is untouched, supposedly. This is how they found everything, exactly the way it is. They haven't even cleaned it or anything. They just lit it. Isn't that incredible? In the Grand Canyon. Massively old. It's just amazing to me. Here are some rock carvings that were found there. As you can see, the detail. It's interesting to look at the faces. In some ways, they more resemble a person of what we would call African American heritage. But then again, detail out of one sculpture may or may not mean anything. Here's something else here. There are quite a number of mummies that were found as well. And they supposedly only opened one to verify that there was actually something in them. And there was a mummy in it. So we have mummies, we have carvings, we have pyramids, we have the story's looking pretty good that we have what we would call Egyptians in the Grand Canyon thousands of years ago. And here are the solid gold sculptures, antiquities that were found, looking more traditional in their style that we're used to seeing, looking like something between an Egyptian and Indian, maybe with a black person kind of blended in there, right? In the looks. Kind of looks like Obama, maybe. And here we have money, solid gold, with markings on it, hieroglyphs basically, as you can see if you look real closely. Solid gold, and it's time for me to answer the phone. Be right back. And then we've got more hieroglyphs here, some different images of them that are in the Grand Canyon, all telling a story. This one is actually the handprints. They put their hands on the rock, and then they use some kind of method, some kind of powder and mixing method to secure their handprints through time. Thousands of years old. A few more. This is actually sculptures right into the walls themselves. And the last one here, and then we're going to take a look at some of the caves and what the caves look like inside. Well, how would you describe this? It looks like you've got some giants with some little people in their laps. Looks like giant men with little women in their laps, and the one on the left has got the little woman up, and he's making out with her, as you can see there. Almost looks like his tongue's hanging out of his mouth. Wow. If that ain't a story and a half. I know some of you know exactly where this story is written at. Wow, this is an amazing hieroglyph. I didn't look at it this close when I first found it. Little women with sitting in giants' laps, and the giant making out with them. Wow, simply amazing. Now here's a large cave, and they have it lit, I guess, for, well, you gotta light it with something, but to make it look the way it looks, they've got it lit, and it's you've heard of the terracotta soldiers? Well, it's kind of like that. There's a bunch of, it's carved right out of the wall, and there are all these carved humans. I guess they are probably replicas of the beings at the time that lived there. They carved themselves into the wall so that they would be there for eternity. And so far it's lasted. They've done a pretty good job. And here you have a cave entrance going into one of the caves with a pointed top and a smooth surface front. You got to remember that these haven't been altered, updated, freshened up, or anything other than natural nature for in excess of 7,000 years for sure. Here's a close-up shot of that same cave entrance. And here's a little bit more impressive set of caves. And from what I've read, it sounds like that once you get inside, it's kind of like an open area in there, and you can see, those are like windows that you can see out. That's quite the view. Quite the heck of a place to decide you want to dig a hole and make a house. I mean, that wouldn't be the easiest thing to do for sure. But then Egyptians aren't known for taking the easiest route. They're known for making things to last, right? Here's another cavern. The barrels you see and all that was put in this cavern back in the 1950s. It's food, storage food, stored in the cavern that lasted through the last, 7 to 14 to 21, whatever. A long time. The cavern ain't caved in, so they've probably figured it's a pretty safe place. I probably agree with them. So what's the deal? Well, the deal is that, as you know, we've been lied to about everything. We're trying to figure it out. And one of the things that is becoming very clear and evident is that the United States was an empire prior to being the United States Empire, and an empire prior to being the nation of the American Indian. It was goes way back. This land did not sit barren prior to the American Indian or the occupation of this land by the white man, which I happen to be one of. It was occupied prior by at least what we would call the Egyptians, and there's no telling how far back before that and what has happened. Now, of course, old Obama here, he of course knows a lot of the truth. I'm sure that no one knows everything, but there's a reason why he's at this dam there in the Grand Canyon. Took the time out to go down there in that hole and walk around. There's a reason why they built this dam. And of course we've seen this dam depicted on the US dollar as being destroyed. We've seen this dam depicted by Madonna and other Illuminati puppets that are in the entertainment industry, depicted as being a birthing canal, the birthing of a new age, likely, is I'm assuming when this dam will no longer stand. And this canyon is once again filled with water. And I suspect that it's no coincidence that all this is the way it is, and that we're finding what we're finding, seeing what we're seeing, and that we now know that we are, through the preponderance of the evidence that I've been able to demonstrate to you guys, and the evidence that other people out there have been demonstrating, that we are let's call it at the end of one ending and the beginning of another, because I've always been a optimistic person. My glass has always been half full, so I don't like to look at everything as being a negative, that we should be afraid of what's coming. I don't feel that way at all. In fact, I feel liberated knowing that these guys that rule this world, although they're going to attempt to go underground and survive through into the next season that this planet has, and become the rulers of that world. They think that they've built the systems using the underground tunnel systems that exist all across this nation. If you're unaware of it, don't believe in it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You can't believe or not believe something out of existence, because it does exist. I've spoken to Department of Transportation personnel. I've spoken to truckers personally. And I've been contacted by other people and confirmed that these underground cities are there, fully stocked, paid for gratis of the United States taxpayer, and ready to receive the elites in the very near future. I've asked them, well, does it look like they're finished? Does it look like they're ready to receive people at any point, or is they're going to need a lot more time? The cities are finished. The underground cities are finished, with the exception of a few areas where they're still drilling a few connection points around the world, because this is not just a United States project. This is a worldwide project that's been going on. All the videos about the humming noise that people hear, you know, the vroom, 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 or noises in the night or in the day, and they think it's coming from under the ground or in the air. That's those 11-story tall drills drilling underground, grinding against granite. The map you're looking at there is a map of all the locations where these humming noises have been heard and reported on the internet. Obviously in the most highly populated areas and in the most highly populated parts of the developed countries that are controlled, mainly heavily controlled by the faction that controls and runs the United States of America, the corporation. Now, in closing, this is the entrance to one of the underground tunnel systems, and one of the last things that the elites of this world will see for the 100, 200, 500-year process of going underground and surviving what is likely to unfold on this planet in the coming years. And at what point they're going to actually go underground, I don't know. But I'd like to say to them, don't let the doorknob hit you on the ass on the way in.
Now, I'm going to show you in this video how ancient Egyptians did indeed come to the United States, and it's not just in the Grand Canyon, but in some other places as well. And I'm going to prove to you that not only did the ancient Egyptians come to the United States of America, but Joseph from the Old Testament in the Bible also came to the United States of America. Now, if you're not familiar with the Joseph I'm referring to, it's Joseph, the one with the coat of many colors. His brothers deceived him, and they threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery. He went through a bunch of stuff over in Egypt. He was the slave to Potiphar when Potiphar's wife started hitting on him because she was an adulterous, unfaithful woman. Joseph refused to give in to her and fled from her, and she screamed out and accused that he tried to rape her. Well, he was then thrown into prison for a long time, but later was released, and he was looked to because of his visions and dreams that he had. He was able to interpret dreams, and he was very intelligent. He became one of the kings of Egypt. So he did indeed come to the United States of America. Once again, I'm going to show you in these articles the evidence of that so that you can see for yourself. Right here it says Ancient Egyptians Grand Canyon. It says this Egyptian tunnel city was named Kincaid's Cave for G.E. Kincaid, who first entered the cave when he was working for S.A. Jordan. Now this picture is the entrance to Powell's Cave in the Grand Canyon. This cave was named Powell's Cave because John Wesley Powell discovered it. John Wesley Powell wrote in his report to the government, which he also published in a book, "In this canyon, great numbers of man-made caves are hollowed out. I first walked down a gorge to the left of a cliff and climbed to a bench of the cliff. There was a trail on the cliff bench that was deeply worn into the rock formation. Where the trail crossed some gulches, some steps had been cut. I could see no evidence that the trail had been traveled in a long time. I returned to our camp at 3 p.m., and the men had found even more Egyptian hieroglyphics on the cliff walls near the cave." Now over here it says G.E. Kincaid served in the Marine Corps. After retiring, he worked for S.A. Jordan as an archaeologist. S.A. Jordan was sent to the Grand Canyon by the Smithsonian Institute to investigate the information that was reported by John Wesley Powell. The tunnel is presently on a cliff wall 390 feet above the present flow of the Colorado River in the Grand Canyon. Archaeologists estimate the man-made cavern is around 3,000 years old. The man-made cavern is over 500 feet long and has several cross tunnels to large chambers. This was the lowest level and last Egyptian tunnel city they built in the Grand Canyon. Since the time that the Egyptian tunnel city was made, archaeologists estimate the Colorado River has eroded another 300 feet lower. Now, right here, this is a picture of John Wesley Powell, and it says that if you want to find out more information about him, you can go to this link here, Ancient Egyptians in America Discoveries. Smithsonian archaeologists have studied the Egyptian hieroglyphs on the walls to this man-made cave, and they are identical to the hieroglyphs for some of the kings of Egypt. The additional Egyptian writings has more additional information than was previously known about these Egyptian kings. Now, this is very interesting right here. Let me move this up a little bit. It says this is a golden artifact for the Egyptian king named Kayan, and it was found in the Egyptian tunnel city in the Grand Canyon. Let me move this up so you can see it a little bit better for a second. It says the Egyptian shrine was in the first cross tunnel in the tunnel, which was in exactly the same location that the shrines were in the Valley of the Kings. Now, in the Valley of the King's Tunnel, cities where Egyptian kings lived before the kings of ancient Egypt began to build pyramids and above-ground cities in Egypt. The archaeological meaning of the power beams radiating to the hieroglyphic symbols for the ancient king's the archaeological meaning of the power beams radiating to the hieroglyphic symbols for the ancient king's hieroglyphic symbols. Now, I don't know if that's supposed to be a heading or what, but it's really messing me up here. It says that it means Cayenne, and it was a powerful king in Egypt. So Cayenne was a very powerful king in Egypt. Now, here's the interesting part. He was recorded as a descendant of Zaphnath, or Joseph, that was the king of Egypt from 1610 to 1580 at Avaris, Egypt, where King Zaphnath ruled Egypt from also. All kings and pharaohs had different Egyptian hieroglyphs for symbol identification. Both the symbol and name of Cayenne is on the base of his shrine. The top symbol on the base of his shrine in the left side top of his center hieroglyph is the Hebrew Semitic son of the right hand that meant firstborn son. Then in the center of the base is the hieroglyphic symbol for the Cayenne with his power beams, and he is holding the staff of the Lord in one hand. There is no doubt about the identification for Cayenne, or that he was a descendant of King Zaphnath in Egypt, who was Joseph in the Bible. King Cayenne sat on the throne of his ancestor, King Zaphnath, at Avaris, Egypt also. Now, this isn't the evidence I have about Joseph coming to the United States of America. That I will show you here shortly. But this just shows you how this king was a descendant of Joseph. Now here's a picture of some Egyptian urns that were found in Powell's Cave. They are at the Smithsonian Institute at Washington, D.C. Very Egyptian looking there. And here is a tablet. It's a gold tablet. It was recovered from the Egyptian tunnel city in the Grand Canyon. And it was basically a history book that included names that began with King Zaphnath, or Joseph, coming to Atzland, and the information for his descendant King Cayenne coming to the Grand Canyon. On the left bottom of the artifact is, and you can see right there, the symbol for the second land of Egypt named Memphis by King Zaphnath. So it's the symbol for a second land of Egypt. On the top left is F, which meant family, in the Armenian Semitic language that he spoke. More history for Atzland was on the back side of the gold artifact. So the thing you want to remember that I want to highlight in that article, or for that artifact there and what it stated, was the symbol, which it states the second land of Egypt. Now here's something that's interesting. You can see I have to scroll down, and it's going to talk about the second row here, and it's too faded for me to really see. So you can go back and look. Maybe you can find it when you look at it. It says that this diagram was an important discovery for the Smithsonian archaeologists who were exploring the Palace Tunnel in the Grand Canyon. This is a diagram for Egyptian writing system when ancient Egyptians came to the Grand Canyon. It was a school tablet used for teaching Egyptian children to read and write. Now here's the interesting thing. The animal and bird symbols were used to describe the ranks of the kings on the Egyptian hieroglyphs carved into the cliff walls of the Grand Canyon. It's interesting to note the rectangle box on the top second row from the left is the Hebrew Ark of the Covenant symbol, which we know that they carried the Spirit of God around in the Ark. And then it goes on to say lower in the same row is the box without a bottom, which was the Hebrew son of the right hand symbol, which would be the symbol for Jesus Christ. All right, this is a picture you've probably seen all over the internet, and it is an artifact from Kincaid's Tunnel. Even though the many large other smaller images were found in the tunnel in the Grand Canyon. This artifact was an important discovery for the Smithsonian archaeologists. It is an artifact for King Akhenaten and Queen Nefertiti. Their ancestors and children's names are on this artifact. The Egyptian name of Zaphnath or Joseph is one of their ancestors. It is recorded that Akhenaten restored the Semitic religion of Ammon in Egypt at Saqqara, Egypt. Akhenaten was the recorded ruler in Egypt from 1353 to 1336. His son Setaprine was also an Egyptian ruler in the Grand Canyon and was recorded as a king at Saqqara, Egypt also. This Egyptian information means that Egyptian kings came to the Grand Canyon at various times, but also returned to Egypt. When Egyptians came to the Grand Canyon around 1700 BC, they began building tunnel cities in the Vermilion cliff walls into the north rim of the Grand Canyon. And I'm going to supply a video by Brian Forrester. I actually did a post some time ago about the tunnel systems beneath the Giza pyramids, and he just came out with a video where he takes you into those tunnel systems beneath the Giza pyramids. So the Egyptians were very famous for their tunnel systems, for their technology, and so forth. The Egyptians first selected overhangs that had balconies so the kings could walk to the edge of the plateau balconies and look at the farming and mining that was located at lower levels of the Grand Canyon. The Egyptian kings had their Egyptian hieroglyphic symbols on the canyon walls around their tunnel cities and on the Grand Canyon cliff walls. The Keabab Plateau is around 8,000 feet above the present flow of the Colorado River in the Grand Canyon. And down here, it says these cliff walls were the top cliff walls that were above the large Keabab Plateau of the Grand Canyon. All the Egyptian temples are on the north side of the Grand Canyon also. And here it talks about the fertile land, how basically it could have fed at least 500,000 people. And the estimated number of the Egyptians in the Grand Canyon were about 50,000 people. So there would have been more than enough to sustain them. Now, this artifact is from Kincaid's Tunnel in the Grand Canyon. It's identified as being an artifact for King Apprehension, who sat at Saqqara, Egypt also. In Egypt, King Apprehension was known as the powerful king that ruled foreigners also. Right here is a copper statue in Kincaid's Tunnel in the Grand Canyon. It was identified as a shrine for Anubis. It is impossible that he was ever in the Grand Canyon. Anubis was a famous Egyptian embalmer that believed in an afterlife. Now notice also I've talked about, their depictions of a body of a man with the head of a beast. So I've discussed how those would have actually been Nephilim or Raphaim beings that were created by the sons of God mating or having sex with the daughters of men. Now here are the Walhalla ruins. These ruins in the Khabib Plateau of the Grand Canyon are being excavated. Because of the plundering of artifacts, even by the Smithsonian archaeologists, FBI agents always attend excavating teams in the Grand Canyon and now at all sites in the United States. Now do remember that most of your national parks in the United States are now owned by UNESCO, which is a division of the United Nations. Now this here is pretty interesting. These are pictures of Hopi Indians who occupy that area, and it says the Grand Canyon National Park was named an official national park in 1919. The National Park Service has a policy of preserving the history of Native American Indians when establishing parks. They lived on the North Keabab rim of the Grand Canyon where the Egyptian pyramids are located, and they knew the names of the Egyptian pyramid temple names that are located under the North Keabab rim of the Grand Canyon. The Hopi Indians have a god named Tawa. He was a man's face that smiles all the time and has a good heart. The Hopi Indians still use a large number of original Egyptian words in their language. So, the interesting thing that you could, ask yourself there would be, number one, either these Hopi Indians dwelled alongside with the Egyptians at that time, or maybe they are descendants of the Egyptians who were at the Grand Canyon. This is the original Seth Tanner trail, and it's still a popular tourist trail in the Grand Canyon. Now, the Egyptians mined copper, silver, and gold, and we've seen some of their copper and gold artifacts here in this article. They mined it from the Grand Canyon. There are many ruins of Egyptian metal smelters and furnaces in the Grand Canyon. These metal smelters and furnaces are located on the second plateau of the Grand Canyon, and there are several mining tunnels and Egyptian tunnel cities in the cliff walls of second-level Grand Canyon plateaus. Even though the Iris Temple in the Grand Canyon is now badly eroded, a few of the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs can still be seen on the cliff walls of the temple. The temple also has an obvious entrance, but only a few feet into the temple entrance it is closed. The National Park Service will not allow any excavations of the pyramid temples. Now, I didn't know this, and maybe I should have. Maybe most of you do know, but I didn't, because I've never really looked that deeply into the Grand Canyon. But there is a pyramid, and it's right here. You can see right there. It says the Tower of Set, actually the Setaprine Pyramid, was named by the Hopi Indians. The Tower of Set was the first pyramid to be built in the Grand Canyon as a burial tomb for King Setaprine that came to the Grand Canyon. All of the Egyptian hieroglyphs have eroded off the pyramid. The Set pyramid has a rectangular shape similar to the first pyramids in Egypt. Now over here it says this small gold artifact was found in Kincaid's Tunnel, and it's on display at the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. The Egyptian legend for Iris, the goddess of power and love. She was the first daughter of Gad, who was the first god of earth in Egypt. Her heart was full of love. The hearts of her love are on the base of the image of her, which you can see right there. Now here's another interesting thing here. It says Zoroaster Temple in the Grand Canyon was named by the Hopi Indians. And wait till you hear this. This is pretty interesting. Here's the Egyptian legend for Zoroaster. Zoroaster was in Egypt when times were hard and Egypt was becoming a poor nation. But Zoroaster's first name had been Joseph because he had a god that was higher in the heavens than their sun god named Ra that knew what the Pharaoh's dreams meant. Joseph became very popular because he could interpret the dreams of the pharaohs. So the pharaohs loved him, and his dreams always became true. They were accurate. He built a big boat that had wings or sails that would carry many people and found more grain and gold for the Egyptians. When he came back to Egypt in this boat loaded with gold, grain, the pharaoh made him the ruler of Egypt and called him Zaphanat Paneah. And Pharaoh was like a father to King Zaphanat Paneah. And the next article I'm going to show you is going to go into more detail about this, which will prove to you that Joseph came to the United States of America because things became so bad in Egypt, they started a second kingdom right over here in the U.S. So remember that, because I'm going to show you more on that. And I don't want to miss this over here. I'm trying to move this screen. Here we go. It says the Hopi Indians told Grand Canyon Park Rangers that this was the Tower of Ra. Only a few eroded Egyptian hieroglyphs can still be seen on the Tower of Ra. Over here, this is an unfinished Egyptian pyramid. and the tunnel's blocked a few feet inside. Now, I kind of wonder if Joseph ever stayed here when he traveled, because it says the Egyptians built some large entertainment centers in the Grand Canyon. The buildings had wood roofs that are no longer on the buildings. These entertainment centers had large fields for foot races and games and had shower rooms and homes for the different athletic teams. The centers also had large theaters for musical concerts and kitchens to prepare meals for the Egyptian kings, athletes, and musicians. So, you know, being that Joseph traveled to the United States of America, which will become more real to you here shortly when I show you the other information on the other article, it's just interesting to wonder. Now, this is called the Tunnel Complex, and Mr. G.E. Kincaid found it. It was a burial chamber inside of it, and these mummies were placed in the burial chamber walls on large stone blocks. The Egyptians began coming to the Grand Canyon according to the carbon dating of the mummies' bones. The carbon date for the oldest mummies was around 1600 BC, and you can see the mummies right there. And they actually opened up one of the cases that a mummy was in, and I don't know if that's a picture, a painting, or some type of a carving, but the face there looks pretty clear, so I would venture to say it has to be some sort of a carving or drawing, but I could be wrong. And let's see what it says here. It says one of the crypts was open in the Grand Canyon to see if there were mummies in them before they were sent to the Smithsonian Institute storage building. And yes, they did find mummies in them. Now, this article is very long, and I'll probably do a separate video post on this, but for right now, I do want to mention the things about Joseph to give you the actual evidence that he came to the United States of America, and this is pretty interesting. This is actually in Illinois. So now I showed you the Grand Canyon, how the ancient Egyptians were there, but here's one. It's called Burroughs Cave in Illinois. It says, every new discovery has its dangers. In the version of our story, in 1982, Russell Burroughs rediscovered a cave along a branch of the Little Wabash River near his hometown of Olney, Illinois. However, he only looted the Egyptian tomb cave in Illinois. Some of the published information for his artifacts has been proven to be correct, but some identifications for his artifacts may be incorrect. Now, it says this artifact was removed from Burroughs Cave in Illinois by Russell Burroughs. This is the best preserved artifact for the exact face structure of King Zaphnath-Paaneah of Egypt that has ever been discovered. And I just told you how he was Joseph from the Bible. King Zaphnath-Paaneah of Egypt wrote that he found another place for Egyptians to live because Egypt had become overpopulated when he was 36 years old. This date would be around 1744 BC. 3 broken pieces of this same face structure and crown style were found in the ruins at Erebus, Egypt, where he ruled Egypt for 48 years. The Mormons have records for him, including some of his writings, information for his 12 trips to a foreign land, which was in a gold book that was part of the Dead Sea Scrolls discovery, were new records for him. The artifact was identified as an artifact for King Zaphnath of Egypt, who was Joseph in the Bible. The direction of the boat on King Zaphnath's crown is coming to the Hio River of Ophir. Ancient Aztlan, or Hio, of the Empire of Ophir is now the United States. So, an artifact, you know, on Joseph in the Bible, the direction of the boat on his crown shows him coming to the United States. King Zaphnath ruled Egypt from the Temple of Ammon at Erebus, Egypt. King Zaphnath recorded 12 trips to Ophir, or the United States, that became his second land of Egypt. Some historians and some archaeologists are aware of this information, but some historians and some archaeologists are unaware of this information. The sun of the right-hand symbol is on the bottom right side of the artifact because we know that Joseph was very loyal to God, and I mean the Almighty One True God, Yahweh. Then the box above the symbol is the Semitic symbol for the Ark of the Covenant, or the Ark of the Covenants they have. This is a strong indication that King Zaphnath, or Joseph, who ruled Egypt for 48 years, ruled Egypt according to the 10 Commandments in the Bible. The sun of the right-hand symbol on the right bottom corner of the artifact is a Semitic symbol. This Semitic symbol has been found on other artifacts in the Middle East countries. This symbol meant the first son of a mother instead of the father. When a father had 2 wives, he may have 2 sons of the right hand. The 3 diamonds are Egyptian symbols for the greatest wealth. There are 3 diamonds on his artifact. This is a strong indication that he was the king at 3 locations. We think the 3rd location was the Grand Canyon. Then on the top is M. The M is for my which was a symbol for his Egypt. I don't know if that's a typo, but you can see right there. I don't know, how to tell you differently. It says there's a symbol M is for my. Okay, I'm just reading it wrong. It says is the symbol M. This symbol is for my, which was a symbol for his Egypt. And then the umbrella shape means the umbrella empire on both lands of Egypt that was established by King Zaphnath from Egypt. King Zaphnath wrote that he found another place for Egyptians to farm and mine when he was 36 years old. This research date would be 1744 BC. And there's an artifact there. That was recovered from Burroughs Cave in Illinois. It's been identified as a tripod that was used to measure the degrees of the stars with. These degrees and measurements are on the top of the artifact. Now, here's an interesting piece that had to do with Joseph. It says, historians and archaeologists have identified this gold artifact from Burroughs Cave. Each Egyptian ruler had a separate hieroglyphic symbol. This is the hieroglyph that King Zaphnath, or Joseph, chose for himself. Shu was the Egyptian name for a crocodile in Egypt at the time. Shu, the crocodile, was the symbol that King Zaphnath chose. This was the first known crocodile hieroglyph symbol for any king in Egypt. This same hieroglyph was found at the Erebus, Egypt ruins for King Zaphnath. King Zaphnath is holding the staff of the Lord. Okay, so then on the bottom right is a dash, which meant number 1. Next above the dash is 1x, this gold artifact. X is the symbol for first or father. Then above the X is the diamond, which meant greatest of wealth. Then above the X is the, and you can see right there, I'm not sure how to say that, symbol, which is for the second land of Egypt. Then above is the elongated W symbol. The W symbol meant a large body of water or the ocean. Then above the W seems to be a landmass with a river in the center of it. King Zaphnath was known to be a wise king in Egypt and knew that Shu, the crocodile symbol, was a more powerful symbol than the bird symbols of the pharaohs of Egypt. So the pharaohs of Egypt always used the bird symbols, but he used a crocodile symbol, which was even more powerful. Maybe he was trying to convey that his God, which is the one true God, was more powerful than any other god that man had created for himself. He knew that he would be worshipped by a very powerful god by the Egyptians that were not of Semitic descent. This very same symbol was found in the ruins of the Temple of Ammon at Erebus, Egypt, which was the location that King Zaphnath was the king of Egypt for 48 years. King Zaphnath was also a writer. His grandson Azrael was the next king of Egypt. Azrael was a writer also. Like King Zaphnath, Azrael was known by another Egyptian in their own language. Azrael was King Mabri Shushi. Mabri Shushi meant son of Shu in their Egyptian language. And who again was Shu? Well, Shu was Zaphnath, who was Joseph from the Bible. So Mabri Shushi meant son of Shu in their Egyptian language. His grandson, Seleucus Mabri, was the next crocodile king of Egypt, and he also was a writer. This is a stone tripod. It's one stone that's on the picture on the right. It's a tripod with it looks like a dash or maybe a plus sign on the top of the tripod, which was the exact location mark for the Cahokia Pyramid City and Cahokia Mountain State Park near Collinsville in southern Illinois. Then the left picture is the back of the stone that has some star degrees and math for figuring star degrees. Now I'm going to leave you with this information. This article is pretty long. I will probably do a second video at some point using this article here. But with the information I provided you that Steve Quayle provided links to from his Giants website, you can see clearly that the Egyptians did come to the United States. And when I say Egyptians, I mean the ancient Egyptians, long before Christopher Columbus or any of that happened. They came to the United States, and not only did they come to the United States, but Joseph of the Old Testament, Joseph with a coat of many colors, traveled over here back and forth. And not only did he travel over here, but he started a new kingdom for the Egyptians over here.
I wanted to talk about my experience at Social Security office. It was really fast. It wasn't like it was long or anything like that. I went, they close at 4 on the weekday for me. So I went in and there's a it's a metal box now, and you touch screen the metal box, and you tell them they're there for your social security card. You hit other twice, and they give you a number. I probably waited about 5 minutes, and then I went to the booth, and there was a woman there, and she was Afro-Asian as well. You know, it's funny because in her computer was the card, the little card that she had to stick in to be able to access the computer. And on the card, she has short hair, but in front of me, she's got this long hair down to her shoulders. You know, that shit trips me out. I started talking to her. She said, "What are you here for?" I said, "I'm here for the SF-181. Is that what we're looking at? The SF-181. And I stated that I'm here for the SS5 because in SS5 there is a section for race under number 7. Okay. Now she had a problem finding the SF-181. Now you have to understand, I live in Akron, Ohio. It is a relatively regular, lower mid-sized city. There's not that many people that's here, but traffic is always crammed anyway, right? We got same stuff you do for the most part, from Starbucks to, you know, TGI Fridays and stupid stuff like that. When I talked to her about the SF-181, she explained she's never heard of it. Nobody's ever come and asked for it. Even when she gets it on screen, she says, where does this even get sent to? And I explain, I believe it goes to the Office of Management and Budget. And she goes, OMB, and I go, what did you just say? She goes, Office of Management. I'm like, yeah. So, as a federal employee, she's able to send this to any, place it needs to go. So she didn't understand this. So I explained as briefly as I could. Like I said, I was only there about 20 minutes. I got parking for an hour, but I was only there 20 minutes. The things that I used to explain to her, I stated, you have to read what Columbus wrote as the description of Indians when he came. And then I stated a little bit about Dum Diversus, which gave the Christians permission to come over. And one more thing I stated was that this has to do with the Old Testament, that the New Testament is a conflicting God, if you pay attention and read. Now, throughout this, she's reading and she's asking me a few questions here and there. Now, I expressed to her, when you read Origins, original peoples of, and you do not have this in this sentence at all, this has to do with the Dred Scott case. Now, of all the things she started writing down, and she started taking notes, she started taking personal notes. At some point, she grabbed something, wrote to the side, and then she set the pen down. She started typing again. And what she did was she wrote down Dred Scott case of 1865, and she felt, from her perspective, that's where she needed to start. And I got no problem with where people need to start. I just hope that people do start. That's my actual problem, that people don't turn on their engine. We are built and we are designed for something, and it's truthfully not city dwelling. A lot of us have the hunter-gatherer mentality. Well, the problem is we weren't the great hunter. We were the great gatherer. We are farmers. In fact, on my father's side, our family name branches off to farmers. last name literally Farmers. My uncle was Larry Farmer. He worked for one of these record companies in the 70s. You know, we go down to Arkansas from time to time and see our relatives, the farmers. In fact, I'm going to be talking a little bit about my ancestry today. So I explained to her, the Dred Scott case connects, in my opinion, to this, how this form is written. Because again, if you're black, you have no status, and status seems to revolve around being, having an origin and being of the original peoples. Now, I want to explain something to you. Okay. We're going to see some comments, and in the comments, people will say, "Oh, but we were all over the world," and stuff like that. Again, not everybody black is related. Not everybody Afro-Asian is from the same family group. Now, we might all go back to a root, but there are many branches in between us all. Okay? So, as we understand that, because when you look at Moab, Moab is Hebrew. The Americanized word for Hebrew is Cherokee. Nina, Styles by Nina, educated us all on this. Now, the Cherokee, I believe Nina did. If she didn't, I'm sorry about who actually did. That's where I learned it from. Now, when we look at the Hebrew, the term for Hebrew in American, which is Cherokee, there are different Cherokee branches. Now, the problem is the imposter didn't understand that they were all Cherokee. So he understood family names alone. So look, when you look at Edomites, and you know that there are black Edomite Indians, those are Cherokee. They are under the branch of Choctaw. Okay? So you have to understand how that breaks down. If you sit there, biblically, you would call them Hebrew Edomites of the blah, 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 right? Because, you know, that you just don't have a biblical name for Choctaw, even though Choctaw would be their biblical name. But you get what I'm saying. All right? So when you take this into consideration, Israel and Moab are related. They're like distant cousins, real far. Okay? And I'm expressing this for a reason, because when people sit there and say, I'm a Moabite Israelite, there's no such thing. And if those parents, if those two different branches intermingled, then God will sort it out, because Moab, as that scripture says, has no place in heaven. Because when you were on your exodus, they turned you away. They know that, and you know that. Okay? Now, when Moab, with their god Chemosh, right? Kemet, right? All that. When they went and conquered Egypt, the Bible says Israel joined with them. And then Balaam was hired to curse the Israelites, but instead he blessed the Israelites, and the Israelites whooped the shit out of Moab. As it's written in your scripture. Now, when those two people groups joined for a bit, they swapped customs. So when you see Moors wearing Aaron's bobbin, which is called a war bobbin, that's because they switched customs. When you, I got a text. Let me see if I can get this text real quick. Let me see if I get this text up, because I completely forgot about it. And the brother showed me a text. Oh, that's not it. Oh, that don't open. Click the wrong one. Here we are. Okay. So This is, oh wow, my phone's active, baby. It's all shifty. Okay, I'm gonna turn this the long way. And it says, more pseudo history. Okay, and they tell you, you see the kufi hat for the L, and then the bonnet for the Bey. Now this is what it says. The Bey deals with governors of the land, enforce laws of the Elohim. Now listen, if you read the Bible and look up where it says bonnet, even though we call it a war bonnet today, it's called a bonnet in the Bible. And it says the sons of Aaron will wear the bonnet. Now, when you look that up, Aaron's the law keeper, right? So Aaron's like the judge, right? The governor, right? And so the L hat is the legislative branch, right? So this is why they wear the kufi hat for the lawgiver, right? The governor, right? So this would be like the quote unquote, from their opinion, the Moses and the Aaron hat. But you can see from the Decalogue stone, Moses' afro. So Moses didn't wear a hat. This is what they deemed that stuff in their culture, the culture of Moab. Even though at least one thing, the bonnet, we can find in the Bible, and it's from the culture of the Israelites. And again, Psalms 83, Moab said, with other nations, let us do this so they are a people no more. The United States is our land because this is the place that our chief, Moses, and the legislative chief, Aaron, brought the people to become a nation. Remember, your vagabonds, your ex-slaves leaving Egypt. You march, you march, you march. Your general keeps telling you march and march. And you bickered with him, and that got him kicked out of the land. That's why Moses only got to see the land. He didn't get to go to the land because of the attitude of the Israelites. And again, we're going to go over the comments today because I'm going to show you the same shit, the attitude of the so-called Israelites. Now, when Moses marches you over there, this is when you're given a place to be. You got the law on the way. This is the 10 Commandments. Then you worshiping the golden calf. Then he breaks that shit. Well, I'm getting the law. You're breaking the law. I'll just break the law now. How can I work with these Indians if these Indians don't want to work with themselves? So you got to understand how this is all connected. Now they tell you, oh, black people all over the world. Well, that's irrelevant because those are different bloodlines. The importance is our bloodline. And the significance of our bloodline and our homeland have to deal with, again, where we became a nation. Now, when we go over here, a person having origins in the black racial groups of Africa, that has nothing to do with the original peoples. And I'm going to temporarily bring this up, and I'm going to show you there's this title of this book that I'm trying to find that M.W. Smith showed me this, and it's called, excuse me. Oh, I'm just going to get back to where the full title's up there. Oops. There we go. Ethiopians in the Missing Links of African History. Now, this is a title of a book from the 1990s. Now, it's got an interesting page we're going to read from in a little bit. But understand the title. Ethiopians missing from the pages of African history. So if Ethiopians, right? Now again, these are the black Ethiopians, not the Ethiopians mentioned in the beginning of the Bible. Those people, they're not missing. No researcher wants to tell you who they are because these black people who are missing in the links of African history, they came from Asia and they moved over there. Now, I've told you this. In the beginning of these series of videos, I've showed you where they another historian explains. I've showed you a different video, my own, where I read Herodotus's words. Well, there's two Ethiopians. One group is in India, where they started, and the other group is in Africa, below Egypt. So you had Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Lower Egypt was Ethiopia. Okay? Now, when you get into the words of Herodotus, he explains, man, you gotta just read it yourself. And the Indian people will tell you that, what are they called? Mediterranean people came over to India and started mingling with the Afro-Asian and created the Dravidian. See, people, you got to do your research. And you got to understand how these combinations, these amalgamations are made. Now, again, if Herodotus says, I go to Egypt and I talk to an Egyptian priest and he looks like a what? A Mediterranean, then our image of Egypt isn't correct from the start. If we sit there and say the Bible is the start, then the images that we equate with the names in the Bible need to be correct from the start. And we need to pay attention when an overthrow happens or a diaspora happens. People get pushed by the horn in a direction and their land gets cuckolded. If somebody goes into Egypt, overthrows Egyptians without raising the sword, and they start having the kids rule in Egypt, that's a cuckold. That's a bird that flew into another bird's nest. Right? See, in history, we can see these things practiced over and over again with these different nations. But it's here where it's what? 7 horns of 10 kings push the children of Adam. That's why you always say, son of man, do this. Who's man? Adam. So we've got to understand what's really being said. Because if I type in Adamites, who do you think they're going to show you? They don't want to show you shit. They're white people, right? But if I say DNA South Carolina man, don't call him Adam. South Carolina man's genes help date first man. They'll tell you in this article, this man is related to Adam's genes. So you got to say, whoa, wow. Now Adam, his body is found here. Because what are you testing this guy's DNA against to say, hey, it's Adam? Now, I'm going to show you something. M.L. Smith showed me this book. Now, I'm going to get to this book real quick. Now, I know I'm jumping a little bit because this shit is so good. It's so good. Like, this is one of those must-haves. If you follow the lessons that I bring out, this is one of those must-haves because this man is listening to the things I'm saying and the things I'm showing you. It's so much so he can find it in other stuff. This is this book. Now all I have is this photocopy of a page. Now I'm going to try to get it so it's even and good for you. If you can read it, pause the video and read the page, and then I'm going to read it to you. Okay? All right. Now hopefully you got a good clean vision of it and you can read it for yourself before I start reading. But now I'm going to read this. This is from the book. This is from the book, Ethiopians and the Missing Link in African History. Now, here's what the book states on page 91.
Again, I do not have the book. I've tried and tried and tried to get the PDF up. I cannot get the PDF up. All right. So with no further ado, Lost Atlantis, or that portion of Africa that was separated during the flood. The generic definition of Atlantis is evolved from such terms as Adland or Atland, the land of Adam. Now, when you sit here and you know that they've made articles saying this dude from South Carolina is related to Adam, then this book that I'm reading from right now, or this page from this book that I'm reading from, and evidence has now correlated. If the man related by DNA to Adam is found in North Carolina, or excuse me, South Carolina, like it says on screen, you can easily type this in and bring up the article for yourself, or any article affiliated with it. If that's found in South Carolina, that's the United States. If this says right here, Atland, A-T-L-A-N, we already know the map of Atland. It's called today Atslan. And if you say, Google, show me an image of Atslan through images, you'll find this area highlight. You'll find this, period. Now, I'm going to continue to read. Now, some of you internet authors, some of you viewers are affiliated with Mr. M.W. Smith. Mr. M.W. Smith is one of the people that went to Washington to protest the dumb diversus. I met this man in person. He's awesome. Now, this is what it states. The generic definition of Atlantis is evolved from such terms as Adland, A-D-L-A-N, or Atland, the land of Adam. A-D-L, Atlantis or Atlantic. Adam's land divided by water. Adam was once a very wealthy man. The watery worlds were all his own, and also all the solid ground. So prehistoric continent, this prehistoric continent, right, Pangea, before what? The prehistoric continent before the flood was peopled by a race. Now, that's that same language as America being the latest, greatest discovery of the New World, right? That big ass book over here, El Gigantos, right? That's the same way they talk about the Israel. Americas were peopled by. This is the same wording, right? So the prehistoric continent before the flood was peopled by a race, what political writers today would brand as Negroes. That's Spanish for what? Black olives, right? Negro, black. Okay, so who first inhabited South America? How many times do I keep telling you, you from South America? Why? Because that's what Columbus, I snatched these niggas down there, I brought them up here. I took some there, I took some over there, I sent some there. Scattered. Let's see. Negroes who first inhabited South America, Central America, and Mexico. Mexico has been often called the American Egypt. Didn't we learn that when that dude read Horace Butler's book? Don't I have that book over there from when I read it? And it says, Mexico is often called the American Egypt. The people of Mexico were called Aztecs, and their country Aztlan, that's what's on screen right now, which is only a slight variation of Atlantis, which means identical. The children of Adam, never heard that term around here before. The children of Adam are prehistoric Ethiopian race. Now, this is a good time to sit there and type in what? Amos 9 and 7. Let's see. Are not you Israelites the same as the Ethiopians unto me? Whoa! Everything this dumb, crazy Indian has been saying the whole fucking time has been written down by different authors throughout history. Well, don't litter. So look at this. These Negro tribes, still found in South America, are the aboriginals of the continent. Damn, what a find! Woo! Aboriginals of the continent. And the ancestors of the American Indian. Whoa, shit. It's all over. So I'm just, that's the knockout blow. That hit the white man so hard, I felt that shit. Damn. And I took myself off the checkerboard. Woo! These Negro tribes, still found in South America, are the aboriginals of the continent and the ancestors of the American Indians. Wow. Of the North and South America and the West Indies. Oh, shit. Damn, what a find. Woo. So I'm going to close that one out. All right. Teach Me to Be Priestly did a video, and it goes into the white indigenous Orochitans, the cedars of Lebanon. In the scripture that he shows are great. They do show that we have to liberate ourselves. You cannot liberate others if you are not liberated yourself. When you go down here into the comments, great teaching, bro. Thanks from Winifred Holcomb. I got mixed feelings about changing my status to white though. Why can't we just get a box added that says hi? Okay, to answer that question, not to be rude, I know you're stating that to teach me, but just my own opinion, because it's a great question. These are their papers, their terms. There is no from the origin of the land or original peoples of this continent called blah blah blah, or this country called blah blah blah. See, this is the bullshit that we're dealing with. These people on this SF-181 are backed by their lands, like a Korean's backed by Korea. So on the SF-181, they know this is Babylon. So I have the opinion, when you fuck up, they're going to use your self-identification to say you came from blah, blah, blah. Okay, if you're a visitor and you were not born here and you come here, okay, and you rob or steal and you get caught, they're going to be like, okay, we're going to find you, we're going to find your country, and we're going to send you back to your country. Okay, now if you are an immigrant, okay, and you've been here for 2 generations, okay, now, especially if your parents are from 2 different cultures, they're now going to look at you and say, well, we're not really sure where to send you because you're not staying here. And if you look at what Trump has been saying, and we're going to be sending the immigrants back. And you understand what Obama stated, that Caucasians are immigrants that came here. Then you start to understand what's going on. And this is another reason why I'm not checking the white box, because if this scenario comes true and they start sending people back to their fathers' lands or where they came from or where they self-identify with, then why wouldn't they use the SF-181? Now, if I say I'm an American Indian and I'm here in America, and they say, well, you've robbed, you've cheated, or you've stolen, or they just falsify it, but you can't prove you're innocent, they're going to want to try to send you somewhere. If you say I'm a Native American, the most they can do is kick you out of the fucking past the wall that they want to build. Okay. Now, if you say I'm an American Indian mixed with Asia, then they have to a degree, because it's their forms. This is self-identification. And you're told, if you want your future coupons through this declaration, you have to self-identify. Now, when you look at this, if I say I'm Asian, then they have the right to send me back to Asia if I do something wrong. If they say, this is your third strike, we're not going to lock you up forever, there's no more room, we're going to expel you. We're thinking of sending you to Cambodia because you look like Cambodians and you self-identified as an Asian. But I also self-identified as an American Indian. You are not staying here. So if that scenario comes up, I do believe they have the ability to send you back to Hawaii or to the Pacific Islands or to Europe, even if you've never seen Europe, even if you've never seen the Hawaiian Islands, even if you've never seen Pakistan, based on self-identification. Now, again, the scenario doesn't have to come true, but it seems as if there's an inkling that that could come true.
I realize and understand the discontent and the agony and the disappointment and even the bitterness of those who feel that whites in America cannot be trusted. I would be the first to say that there are all too many who are still guided by the racist ethos. I am still convinced there are still many white persons of goodwill, because however much America strays away from the ideals of justice, goal of America is freedom. Used and stormed though we may be, our destiny is tied up in the destiny of America. Before the Pilgrim fathers landed the Plymouth, we were here. Before Jefferson etched across the pages of history the majestic words of the Declaration of Independence, we were here. For the beautiful words of the Star-Spangled Banner were written, we were here. For more than 2 centuries, our forebears labored here without wages. They made cotton king. They built the homes of their masters in the midst of the most humiliating and oppressive conditions. Yet out of a bottomless vitality, they continue to grow and develop.
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleed to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other.
Used and stormed though we may be, our destiny is tied up in the destiny of America. For the Pilgrim fathers landed the Plymouth, we were here. Before Jefferson etched across the pages of history the majestic words of the Declaration Declaration of Independence, we were here. For the beautiful words of the Star-Spangled Banner were written, we were here. For more than 2 centuries, our forebears labored here without wages. They made cotton gin. They built the homes of their masters in the midst of the most humiliating and oppressive conditions. Yet out of a bottomless vitality, they continued to grow and develop.